morning all of you. We will continue with the civics chapter, fundamental rights and fundamental duties. Till now we had a look at what fundamental rights are, what is the importance of the fundamental rights, why they are given to us, and we have also seen the 6 fundamental rights that are given to us by our constitution. Now today we move on and we study about the nature of these fundamental rights are, that how these rights are in practice. So we'll see the nature of these fundamental rights. For that, turn your books to page number 226. Page 226. Okay, first, now these fundamental rights are universal in application. Now universal in application, it means that they apply or they are guaranteed to all the citizens of a country irrespective of any difference that they might have. Now this difference might be based on region, religion, color, caste, gender, social status, education. So no matter what, these fundamental rights are universal, means they are guaranteed to all citizens without any discrimination on the basis of any difference that we might have. Then second, the fundamental rights are justiciable. Now what does this term justiciable means? Now it means is that if our rights are violated, we can go to the courts to get our rights back restored to us. So if we feel that our fundamental rights are violated, we can go to the high courts or the Supreme Court to get our rights back to us. Third, fundamental rights are not absolute. Now this we have already seen that the fundamental rights are not absolute. Though we have these rights, but every right, it comes with a limitation or it comes with a restriction. And now why these restrictions are placed? These restrictions are placed keeping in mind the larger interest of the society or the larger interest of the country. Now basically what it means is that while exercising our rights, we cannot harm anyone. Alright, so though we have the right to freedom, alright, and under right to freedom we have the right of speech and expression, but that does not mean we can go on saying anything bad about other people and harming their reputation or bringing a bad name to them or defaming them. So we can exercise our rights only till the time they are not harmful for others. So the rights are not absolute, there are certain restrictions placed on them. Then we have also seen this, that some of our rights, like the right to freedom, now they can be suspended for a while. Temporarily they can be suspended during emergency, alright, or if there is a danger of war or some internal disturbances in the country, or there is civil war, means fighting between two groups of people in the same country. So if there is any certain such problem, so during those times our right to freedom, they can be suspended for a while, because like I gave this example to you earlier also, I think, that like if there's fight going on between two communities of the same country, and so fundamental rights during a civil war, they are suspended. Now why? Because if you are again, you continue with the freedom of speech and expression, then you can go on saying so many things, unnecessary bad things for the other community also, and then what will happen? This can worsen the situation. Alright, and expression, now under expression media and everything also comes, and so that is also restricted. Otherwise you can broadcast, you can print and say things now which can make the situation even bad. So that is why some of these rights are limited for a while. Now there are certain laws in our country which limit these rights in the interest of the people of the country. Now some of these rights are the Maintenance of Internal Security Act, the Defence of India rules, the Preventive Detention Act, etc. Now we don't need to go into detail on all these acts, but simply they are mentioned here to tell you that certain laws have been passed. Alright, now why have they been passed? To safeguard the interest of the country as a whole, and also to abridge, means lessen the impact of our fundamental rights to a great extent. Now otherwise, if there is no restriction placed, then you know it can lead to a situation of lawlessness and more problems in the country. And so you know certain laws have also been passed, and all this has been done to safeguard the interest of the larger public or the interest of the country. Then the Indian Parliament, they have also passed another law which is called as the National Security Act, and this is done to safeguard the interest and security of the nation. So the interest and the security of the nation, they come first. But you know these operations means the operation of these laws which we have just seen, now they have been restricted, means you cannot just simply go on using them. So they have the operation of these measures, now they have been restricted to a minimum extent, and only a competent authority, means a person having necessary skills or knowledge, now only they can authorize or give permission for something like this. Okay, so these were our fundamental rights and the nature of fundamental rights. Now in this chapter we will also study about fundamental duties, means duties which are of central importance, very necessary for us to perform for the upliftment, for the sovereignty, for the freedom, the integrity, the unity and the harmony of the country. Now rights and duties, they go hand in hand. It is not that you know we just simply go on exercising and enjoying our rights and then not do anything in return. Now rights and duties, you can say they are the two sides of the same coin. Now every right carries along with it a certain duty. So with each right that we enjoy, we have a certain duty to perform or a certain duty to fulfill. And it is possible to enjoy our rights only when the others are performing their duty. So if the others are not performing their duty, then we will also not be able to enjoy our rights. So what becomes necessary, that all of us perform our duties so that each one of us may also enjoy our rights. So rights and duties, they are equally important. It is not that okay, no, I want only rights, I don't want to do anything in return. No, it is not like that. They are equally important, and so our constitution, it has laid down certain duties for the citizens. Let's see what these are. First, to respect our national symbols. So under this, what all comes, that we need to abide, we need to follow and respect our constitution, respect the ideals on which the constitution has been based, respect the institutions of our government, and respect the national flag, the national anthem. So this is our first fundamental duty. Then follow the noble ideals. Now you know, while we were fighting for independence, so the leaders, you know, they were inspired by certain ideals during our struggle for independence. So now it is not that though we are free, so we let go of those ideals, but we know, you know, we need to cherish, we need to hold them dearly, and we need to protect and follow those ideals which inspired our struggle for independence. Then to keep sovereignty intact, you know, we need to work hard. We need to work hard to uphold and to protect the sovereignty, the freedom of our country, so that our country remains free and it remains united, and also work for the integrity. Integrity means, you know, the moral and ethical code. Now India, it stands on certain moral principles, certain ethical principles, and so you know, we need to follow that. And so we as citizens, we need to work for the freedom, for the unity and for the integrity of our country. Then we need to promote harmony. Now what that means is promoting oneness, promoting a spirit of brotherhood among the people in the country, irrespective of the differences that we might have based on religion, language or region or any other difference that we might have. So though you know we are a diverse country, we are a diverse people, but still we should have that feeling of oneness and brotherhood for each other. To preserve rich heritage, now you know we have a very rich and composite rich heritage and a composite culture. Composite means made up of many parts. You know, it is not that only one culture is followed in our country. People, they follow so many different cultures and traditions, and there are so many languages and all. So we need to protect it all. So we need to value and preserve this great heritage of our culture. Then we need to protect the environment. So we need to protect and improve the national environment, including the forest, lakes, rivers, wildlife, and also have compassion for all living creatures. So it is not the work only of elderly. You can even think that what you as children you can do to preserve your environment. Then develop scientific spirit. Now, developing scientific temper, scientific spirit, it means having a logical, a rational, a reasoning, and a scientific mind, not simply blindly following the age-old superstitions that have been followed. Means if someone said something, okay, we blindly simply go on for. No, we need to reason it out. We need to give logical reasons, scientific reasons. Milk boiling over does not cause any harm. The only harm is that you need to clear the whole thing. There's a great mess that you have created. That's all. Obviously, it is not a bad omen, and so a bad black cat crosses your path. How can it lead to something bad in your life? Okay, so basically, like, before following anything, before doing anything, we need to reason it out. We need to think and give a logical explanation for everything. Then humanism. We need to develop humanism. What it means is that we need to develop human values and respect the dignity of each human living in our country. We should have the spirit of inquiry, means strong desire to know more. So we need to have that. We need not be complacent. Okay, very cool, and no, it's okay, whatever I know, that is enough. No, we need to have the spirit of inquiry. We need to have this strong desire to know more, and we at the same time not only to know more but also to reform, to change ourselves for the better. Then to protect public property, so we as citizens, it is our responsibility to protect the public property. Okay, can you give me some examples of public property? What all comes under public
Ma'am,
property?
public toilets.
All right. Then
Ma'am, park.
parks. What else?
Ma'am, hospital.
Hospitals, government hospitals, right? Railway
Ma'am,
stations,
government. Ma'am, government schools. Ma'am, government schools.
government schools, railway stations, bus stations, all right, roads. So
Ma'am, airport.
yes, and even places of historical importance. Now we need to protect all these. You must have seen people littering everywhere, spitting everywhere, scratching their names and all rubbish on these historical buildings and places. So we need to protect the public property, and at the same time we need to abjure violence, means we need to stay away from violence. We need to refuse to indulge in violence of any kind. Then we need to be ready to defend the country and provide national service when called to do so. So if we are called, then we should be ready to defend our country and be ready even to lay down our lives for our country. Then the last is striving towards excellence. So what it means is that not only as an individual but as a group, as a country, we need to strive, we need to work hard, press on towards excellence in all spheres of our life. Means in every aspect of our life, we need to have that spirit that drives us towards excellence. Okay, then but we know that nothing can be got without paying a price. Even if you want to buy anything, even just a chocolate for instance, or even a cell phone for instance, now you go to the shopkeeper and he will not give it to you just like that. Will he give it to you just like that?
No, ma'am.
No,
No,
you
ma'am.
need to pay
Yeah.
certain, yes, you need to pay certain price for that. And so nothing can be achieved without paying a price. What we mean to say is that you cannot have anything, you cannot have rights without doing certain duty, without performing certain duties. Alright, so every right, the word is wrongly written here, it should be implies, I-M-P-L-I-E-S, it is wrongly written as implies. Every right implies some duty. Now what it means is that every right indicates the existence of some duty. Okay, now these duties, what is the work of these fundamental duties? Now these duties, they make us good and respectable citizens, and they help to make the citizens patriotic. Patriotic, what is the meaning of patriotic?
Ma'am, love for country.
Okay, love for the country, right? So our fundamental duties, they make the citizens patriotic, and they make us realize the importance of the freedom and the unity and integrity of a country. Then these duties, they have been added in the constitution to promote the idea of oneness, harmony, brotherhood among India, so that all this makes the country a strong nation. Okay, so now if we evaluate these duties, okay, now the above duties, they are contained in part 4A of the constitution, and they simply state what the country, what the nation, it expects from the citizens in returns to the rights which are given to us and which are mentioned in part 3 of the constitution. So basically, what are these fundamental rights? What is expected from us as citizens in return for the fundamental rights that we have. Now, some critics, they doubt that whether including these duties, they would serve any purpose, will they do any good. Now their reasons are that some of these duties are not clearly worded, means they are not very clearly explained. Words like scientific temper, humanism, now they think that they can be explained in various ways. So some of these duties have not clearly been worded or explained. Then some people think that there is no coercive or forceful machinery to enforce these duties. Now just our fundamental rights are justiciable, means if they are violated, we can go to the courts, but there is nothing like that with our fundamental duties. It is not that if we don't do our fundamental duties, we can be called to the court. It is not like that. And so some critics think that because there is no forceful machinery for the enforcement of these duties, so they will not bring about much good. So hence what they say is that this chapter on duties, it will only remain a pious, a holy hope till some more amendments, till some more changes and additions are made to part 4A of the constitution. But other people think that this is not justified. Why? Because nothing can be got without paying a price. Nothing can be achieved without paying a price. And if we want rights, then we as citizens, we need to know, we need to understand that we have to perform certain duties also. And every right, it comes with a duty. And these duties, they not only make us good, they not only make us good humans, but they also make us responsible citizens of the country. Then fundamental duties, they give the right perspective or the right point of view of our fundamental rights. Means when we perform these duties, then we get a clear perspective, a clear point of view of our fundamental rights. And basically what we want to say is that both things balance one another. So the fundamental rights and the fundamental duties, they balance out one another. Then fundamental duties, which we have already seen that they have been added to make us more patriotic and to make the citizens realize to protect the freedom, the unity and the integrity of their country. Then fundamental rights, they have also been incorporated in the constitution to promote the idea of harmony, to promote the idea of oneness, of brotherhood in the land, means in our country in which we have so much diversity. So now fundamental duties, what they do, they promote the idea of oneness along with so much diversity, so as to strengthen our nation. Okay, now let's see what are some efforts which have been made by the constitution for the marginalized community, those communities, you know, who have been thought unimportant and not very essential for the community. So let's see, like the scheduled castes, the scheduled tribes and the other backward classes. So let's see what efforts have been made for the marginalized community so that they can also realize, they can also avail their rights. Now the constitution as well as the government, you know, they have made sincere efforts for the welfare of these marginalized communities. For example, the scheduled castes, the scheduled tribes and the other backward classes. Now first, what provisions have been made in the constitution for them? First, according to Article 15(1) of the Indian Constitution, there shall be no discrimination on the basis of creed, means a belief, race, which race we belong to, sex means which gender we belong to, our caste or place of birth. So no discrimination on the basis of any difference that we might have. But you know, at the same time, now if a special provision is made for these backward classes or backward communities, now that will not be called as discrimination. So equal laws for all the people irrespective of any difference. But if special privileges are given to these scheduled castes, scheduled tribes or the backward classes, then they will not be counted as discrimination for the rest of the people. Then Article 17 of the Constitution, it has banned the practice of untouchability, and now untouchability is a punishable offence. Then according to Article 25(2)(b), all the religious institutions of the Hindus will remain open for all the Hindu sections and classes. Means all religious institutions of Hindus, they will be open for all the castes and classes and sections among the Hindus. You know, earlier under the caste system, you know, untouchables, they were not allowed to go to the temples, and they were not allowed to draw water from public wells. Their children were not allowed to go to school. So now all this provision is made so that, you know, all the people belonging to the Hindu community, no matter what caste they belong to, what section they belong to, they should be allowed to go to these religious institutions. Then according to Article 29(2), admission to any educational institution of the government or government aided institution. Now admission to any government aided institution or a government owned institution cannot be denied to any citizen of India on the basis of a belief, caste, race or language. So equality of opportunity also. Then according to Article 335, full consideration would be given to the claims of the scheduled castes and scheduled tribes for appointment to the service and posts in the central and government offices. So full consideration would be given also to the scheduled castes and scheduled tribes for appointments in the government and state government offices. Then according to Article 338, the President of India, he will appoint a special officer, and this officer will inquire and report to the President about the implementation of the safeguards which have been guaranteed by the Constitution for the scheduled castes and scheduled tribes. So a special officer has been made, and he reports to the President as to how, whether the implementation of these special privileges which have been done for the scheduled castes and scheduled tribes, whether, you know, they are availing results or not. Then according to Article 339, a commission will be instituted for inquiry and report to the President under the administration of scheduled areas and the welfare of the scheduled tribes in the state. So a commission also, according to Article 339, a commission also needs to be there so as to inquire into the matter and report to the President about how the scheduled caste areas, they are administered and governed, and about the welfare of the scheduled tribes in each state. Then Article 46 of the Directive Principles of State Policy, they provide that, you know, the state or the government, they will protect and develop the educational and economic interest of the weaker sections also, especially the scheduled castes and the scheduled tribes, and they will also protect them from social injustice and exploitation. So the Article 46 of the Directive Principles of State Policy, what it says, that it is the duty of the state, the government, to protect and at the same time develop the educational means provide the educational and economic benefits even to the weaker sections of the society, namely the scheduled castes and the scheduled tribes, and also to protect them from any injustice and exploitation. Then articles 330 and 332 gives the right of reservation of seats, and we know, according to their number in population, the scheduled castes and scheduled tribes, they have some reserved seats in the Lok Sabha and state assemblies. Alright, okay, so for today we will stop here. Have you all understood what we have done?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Alright, okay.
Yes, ma'am.